I feel like I have more of a controversial or unpopular opinion with today's video. But if you followed Hip to the Games for the past 3, almost 4 years, then you know I don't fish for takes. I just simply say what I believe and express how I feel. And that's what I'm on today, as I figured it was time for me to express my admiration for the low post big man. All right, it seems like the first instance of the NBA, whether intentional or not, gradually diminishing the center position was in 2012-13 when the All-Star voting format changed, right? When it came from voting for each position to voting for simply backcourt and frontcourt players. And it made sense at that time, right? As guards and wings were starting to emerge more than the big fellas were. And think about it, right? For example, you think of a guy like Josh Smith, right? Maybe he actually would have made an All-Star team if they switched to the more versatile format sooner. So it definitely has its reasons, and but that said, once upon a time, the center had a key role on both ends of the floor. All right, they were the loudest ones on defense. They demanded the ball on offense. They looked at their guards like this if they dare come in their paint and steal a rebound, right? And or they help slow the game down when their team struggled to shoot. All right, I know. I miss it too. Because unfortunately, due to the faster paced, guard first nature of today's game, we only see flashes of that kind of big man, if at all. We even hear phrases nowadays like, oh, two-pointers don't win games anymore, or this makes the offense slow and clunky. And if you're like me, you too find yourself yelling at the TV for your favorite team to hit their big with a favorable matchup in the post, only for the player to go completely ignored, right? But I see you, low post big man. I see you. And since I feel so passionate about this topic, I figured I would shout out five non-superstar players this season who are keeping the low post big man alive, shooting the ball at a high field goal percentage, and maintaining the offensive presence of the center in a league that tends to look down on it. All right, and I want to start with number one of my favorite players in the game today, Ivica Zubac. If you followed me the last few years, you know I'm very high on Ivica Zubac, and even go as far as calling him baby Marc Gasol, before people start running with names and panicking. Baby Marc Gasol, due to his physicality at the center position, a guy who isn't afraid to be aggressive, and the last few seasons, Ivica Zubac has emerged as an extremely valuable piece for the Los Angeles Clippers with his ability to grab offensive and defensive rebounds, set good screens, show soft touch around the basket, convert hook shots, display sneaky athleticism as a lob threat, and even, while more rare for him, he does sometimes showcase his ability to hit mid-range jump shots out the pick and pop. And, even with their star-studded teams that they've had the last few seasons, there have been games where Zoo has been their best player and the one who gets a quick rhythm in the first quarter. There were so many times I watched the Clippers and, Paul George was struggling, or Kawhi didn't really, he was kind of quiet and stuff like that. And then, but the one person who seemed to always have it going was Ivica Zubac. I know a lot of people kind of give him flack because he doesn't always have the best hands and things of that nature, but he really is, I guarantee, every team in the league would want to Ivica Zubac because of what he brings to the team on both ends. If you look at what he does this season, or really over the course of his career, he shot over 60% from the field. And, especially last season, he emerged as one of the league's most underrated rim protectors. So like I said, he's doing it on both ends. And this season, with Paul George gone and Kawhi Leonard still yet to play, Ivica Zubac has gotten a well-deserved increased role in the offense, averaging career highs in points with about 15 a game, rebounds with 12, four offensive rebounds per game, which is third in the league, and 2.5 assists a game, showing his willingness to pass out the post, which again, that's a skill that's become more popular and really more necessary for big men to have nowadays. So he's unselfish and he's also getting his own. He's been one of the more consistent and healthy players for the Clippers, and still at just 27 years old, it's great to see how he continues to improve and help show the NBA world that the low post big is still very much valuable. Now, the second guy here finds himself in a very similar situation, as he's also had a more limited role earlier in his career, similar to Zoo, before finding a permanent role within the last several seasons. And that guy is Jakob Poeltl. Jakob Poeltl is an interesting player because he started with Toronto, got traded to San Antonio, and then he finally found his footing there before actually going back to Toronto. Where you fast forward to this year, he's experiencing a career year this year, and it was also what makes this even more funny is that he had that quote during media day where he was very honest in expressing how the Raptors, they weren't going to win a championship, like they don't have the expectations, and I think his honesty, it threw a lot of people off. And I think it made people question his interest in playing for the team. But the whole time, I guess the brother is just super honest because he's been doing his thing this season, been doing his thing, and another reason why he's so interesting is because while he's a very capable low post player, he doesn't get those opportunities as much as he could. Which again, when you're playing with a guy like RJ Barrett, pick and roll heavy, Grady Dick's emerging, Scotty Barnes is back from injury, they're still waiting on Emmanuel quickly to come back. There's a lot of guys over there that can handle the ball. So, he doesn't always get the low post touches. But that said, he still does a lot of damage as a pick and roll, roll man threat. Similar to Ivica Zubac, he's averaging career high in points with 16, also 12 rebounds, and is actually the one who's leading the league in offensive rebounds per game with 4.3. And then again, similar, he's also getting 2.5 assists a game, also showing his unselfishness as a big. But see, what I found the most impressive about Jakob Poeltl was his 1.1 steals and 1.3 blocks numbers, because obviously you would expect a 7-footer like him to get his share of blocks. That's going to happen. But to get in the passing lanes the way he does, I think it just gives offenses another reason to be careful, not to just, drive inside, but be careful passing in there as well. It's always good. I felt the same way with Steven Adams his last few seasons in OKC. Because those Thunder teams were so great at getting deflections, he was able to get a lot of steals just from, man in the paint and just, getting deflections and his teammates would get the ball. I think Jakob Poeltl does a very similar thing. So not only is he going to be an intimidator as far as protecting the basket, but he's going to be an intimidator in terms of, getting deflections and getting steals. And I think, he's been able to kind of revive the principle that the big man is supposed to own the paint, right? He's literally doing that by having that defensive display. So that's something I certainly appreciate. And might I add, he's also very efficient. He's a threat to shoot 60% night in, night out, with notable games this year. He's got a 24-point game where he only missed one shot, 10 of 11 from the field. 30-point game, shooting 13 of 18 from the field, and then a 35-point game, shooting 16 of 19 from the field. I know the Raptors, they're among the bottom of the league right now, but if you keep sleeping on the talent that they do have over there, despite their record, you'll keep missing what guys like Jakob Poeltl, have been doing this season, repping the big man very well. So shout out Jakob Poeltl for doing his thing this year. And now this next guy for number 3, he's a veteran on the trade block right now, but even in a limited role, he's still doing his thing. And that guy is actually former Raptor Jonas Valanciunas. I know many of us outside Washington ain't watching the Wizards, but I was very impressed to see how Jonas Valanciunas has still found a way to not just extend his career a bit, but still hang on the block at 32 years old, and while 32 is younger now than it was 10, 15 years ago, for him to come into the league at 20 years old and play in an NBA that was still very much so physical and slower paced, I would say that's impressive. Though his numbers don't jump off the page, should the right contender, you would assume, would sign him this year or trade for him this year, he can definitely contribute towards a playoff run. Right now he's averaging 12 points, 8 rebounds, and 2 assists off the bench, shooting 58% from the field and 93% from the free throw line. He's proven to be an efficient big and knock down his free throws, which is a lot more rare for big men to do. And see, this is what I want you to realize too. And one of the reasons I appreciated Jonas Valanciunas over the years was because, much like what I said about Ivica Zubac, he was used as a jab so many times in Toronto and even New Orleans, right? Before the eventual haymakers that were DeMar DeRozan, Kyle Lowry, right? You could let him get the offense rolling. Look for him to get his hook shots going, get him open as a pick and pop guy, for him to shoot the wide open midi. And, of course, in the recent years, those pick and pops have extended to the 3-point line. Like, much of his career, he's been a solid, consistent big man offensively. Like when you look at Jonas Valanciunas' stats, again, nothing really jumps out off the page, but he's been consistent. He does his job, man. And even now as a Wizard, he's still great in short roll situations, respectable on the block. And they love to use him over there in DHO scenarios, with Koulibaly and Jordan Poole. So it makes perfect sense why he still has a role in this NBA. Hopefully, should he get traded, the next team not only sees that same value, but channels it in their offense as well. So shout out Jonas Valanciunas. And then moving to number 4 here, this guy gets a lot of flack because he isn't always the most aggressive, but his skill set is still very, very nice. And that guy is DeAndre Ayton. Stats-wise, he is having a down year this season, shooting a career low from the free throw line at just 68%, which is a little abnormal for him. And even his 55% from the field and 15 points a game, these are both two stats that are the second lowest averages of his career so far. But granted, he did struggle with an injury. Most of November, he missed some games. And, he finds himself on a Blazers team with young guys like Ant Simons, Shaedon Sharpe, who are trying to rise on their own. Jeremy Grant still over there trying to contribute. So there are other guys that want the ball, need the ball, and are doing their thing. But that said, when DeAndre Ayton gets rolling, he looks like that skilled number 1 overall pick that we've seen. His consistency has been great. But I think that's the critique with DeAndre Ayton, is that he just still hasn't taken a next level leap, right? He's been here for so long. It's his 7th year in the league now. He's been here. He just has yet to get here. And that's what people have been waiting on. And despite that, though, if you think about what he's been giving us, okay, yeah, he hasn't made a next level leap, but he has never not averaged a double-double in his career. As he consistently crashes both the offensive and defensive glass. And he's still very much so an efficient player around the basket. Again, a team, a guy many teams around the league would love to have as their center because of what he can do offensively. He doesn't always demand the ball down low. I see him more as somebody who gets in position and he hopes the ball comes to him. He doesn't demand the ball always. But when he does get it, again, a lot of big men struggle with this. When he does get the ball, he does a great job operating quickly, making quick decisions off catches in the high post and finishing with a soft touch at the hoop. His mid-range shot and his floaters and hooks a little bit further from the basket, those are still so smooth. And might I add, he's been taking the most threes of his career, while still not many, only a little over 1 a game, and not the greatest percentage in 31%. That's still fairly respectable for a big man that doesn't shoot too many to begin with. You know at the end of the day, every now and then DeAndre Ayton is going to be good for a 3-point shot. Like that's pretty much how you can take that. And again, I know he isn't the flashiest. I know many folks out there have wanted to see more from him, right? But you can't deny the fact that he is a solid big man, and his offensive skill set is one of the more fundamental ones among centers in this league. Again, this dude was a former, top pick in the draft. Like, you see those flashes when he makes decisions and he gets post position, and the way he plays, he's quick, like, very polished dude. Very much so, like, under the radar, but very polished. So, I definitely wanted to show him some love in the midst of the disgust it seems like people have for his game, or at least his approach at times. His game just screams old school big man, and that's why he's getting some flowers. All right. And then last but not the least, I had to go with the homer. All right. If you know me, I had to go with the homer. And the last big man we're shouting out today is Nikola Vucevic. Man, listen, I did not forget all the trolls who said he was washed, he was done, he sucks, he's trash. I do not forget what they said about my dog, Vucci Mane. You know what I'm saying? Playing with both DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine was a little bit overkill for Nikola Vucevic. It forced him to embrace a smaller role. And honestly, there were a lot of moments he had to bite his lip because of the pride that DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine they have as all-star scorers, clutch players in this league. There were plenty of moments I watched Vooch be ignored, and I think it showed in his play at times. It's hard coming from a situation in Orlando where you're the guy. to playing all of a sudden with two ball dominant scorers. He certainly had his moments over the years, but his rhythm was definitely off. But now he's back as a sleeper all-star. I think I could say that confidently. He's a sleeper all-star right now. 21, 10, 3 on a career high, 58% from the field. If you look on the surface, his numbers are not too much different, outside of scoring to what we're used to the last few seasons, but it's his efficiency to do that in a couple less minutes this season, and see, the way I see Ivica Zubac as a baby Marc Gasol, I always seen Vooch as a baby, again, emphasis, baby, Pau Gasol, because of his decision making in the post, right? His decision making is still great. His footwork is phenomenal. He's really crafty with his up fakes and his pivots to throw his matchups off down low. His quick yet soft touch on the block is still so smooth. He has the ability to make those floaters and hooks with both hands. And, he's one of the few bigs that can actually make the decision, to face up and shoot the midi or attack the basket in triple threat. He doesn't always need a pick and pop to get his mid-range jumper off. You can give it to him in the post. He can face up, hit the midi. This is who he's been over the years. And this year, he's bounced back in a major way with the 3-point shot, shooting an outstanding 48% after just 29% last season. So again, he's been able to extend his range, extend his career. And, I'm one of the few Bulls fans who still see the value he brings to the team. I'm sure he won't be in a Bulls uniform much longer. But for the time being, he's been great for us. And I've loved every bit of it. This is the Vucevic I always knew we had. And even at 34 years old, he's having a very strong start to the year. Hopefully he can keep it up, even if he does find himself in a new uniform at some point. I love the fact, though, that he's reminding everybody what he's still very much so capable of. Again, keeping that low post big man alive, man. If you blink, you'll miss it. If you blink, you'll miss it. And I think it comes down to simple math with a lot of these guys. When your big is involved, they are happy, which means they're going to actually want to set good screens for you, crash the glass hard, run the floor in transition, and I'm not excusing this behavior, but, we wonder why some big men throw their hands up in disappointment or they look uninterested down the stretch of games. I think in particular, you've seen that sometimes with guys like Rudy Gobert, Andre Drummond. This is why. This is why, no matter the skill set, this is why they get disengaged. I think we've lost recipes, for lack of a better term, and we haven't necessarily kept the big man involved in the game. I think it's very similar to the quarterback center relationship in football. You take care of your O-line on and off the field, they're going to have your back on game day. It's the same thing with bigs in basketball. It's basketball 101. What do we always hear growing up? Reward your big man and watch how he or she will stick up for you and play even harder in the games, and I know this era, it can get boring to watch somebody go to work in the post, right? That's not the most thrilling sequence. It's not a swing 3. It's not a size up, step back 3, but the low post still brings value by slowing the game down when possessions get too sloppy, getting easy points inside, crashing the offensive glass, forcing defenses to double team so they can kick to open shooters. It's just, again, like I said, it's a nice jab, with a boxing comparison. It's just a nice jab to keep the defense honest. The big man hasn't left, right? Nor is it dead. As all of these guys I named are good examples of a lost art still having some value. All right, long live the low post big when no one else seemed to care.